Frugal living is supposed to make life easier. You will cut back on spending, save money, and finally feel more in control. That's the idea, right? But it isn't always as simple and rewarding as it sounds. After years of living simply, I've seen how frugality can help, but also how much it can cost you. So here are 7 truths about frugal living, the things you need to hear if you want saving money to actually support your life. The first one is the time trap of frugality. Frugality is meant to save resources, but it can easily just swap what you lose. You know how this looks like in real life. You are scrolling late at night, comparing 5 almost identical toasters, and 2 hours disappear just to save $5. Or maybe you drive across town to fill up at the cheaper gas station, only to realize the savings barely cover the fuel you used getting there. Or you spend half a day digging through Facebook Marketplace listings, then drive somewhere to pick up a used blender for $10. On paper, it looks like saving, but the real cost was all those hours. Many of us still do this because finding a deal gives you a small rush, like scoring points in a game. The brain loves that win, so you go back for more and more. And this is where frugality can get quite addictive. And what makes it worse is the fear of overpaying. It pushes you harder than the reality of wasting hours. Paying $5 too much feels worse than losing an evening. I have done this too many times, wasted hours comparing prices, and the next day I didn't even remember what I was saving for. It was just, waste of time. And I know that I am not the only one. We are trained to see saving money as something to be proud of. Wasting time doesn't carry this same shame, and yet time is the scarcest resource that we have. Rich or poor, we all run out. So here's the shift. Start valuing your time at least as much as your money. Even give yourself an hourly rate. And when you are about to trade time for money, ask yourself, is this saving really worth my hours? Because sometimes the smartest choice is not squeezing out another discount, it's paying a little more to have time and energy for something more meaningful. The second truth is that frugality can prevent you from living. Saving money can give you comfort, but it can also stop you from moving forward. When every choice is about saving, you might end up holding yourself back from things that could actually grow you, like learning skills, traveling, starting new hobbies, all put off until someday. And while you are waiting for the perfect time, the years just pass by. You think you are being smart, but the hidden cost is missed life experiences and memories. Always picking the cheapest option, like the cheapest restaurant, the cheapest activity, the cheapest version of everything, often means you are limiting your life and not living it to the fullest or highest potential. What makes it tricky is that this feels like control. Saving feels safe, while spending feels like risk. It's much easier to avoid spending than to risk it not being worth it. Doing something later becomes like an excuse. You don't have to face the fear of living bigger today if you convince yourself that tomorrow will be better. But as we all know, tomorrow keeps moving and those chances don't wait forever. Opportunities you could have taken in your 20s, 30s or 40s become harder to reach later. Building new skills can also get more difficult with time because life fills up with routines, responsibilities, and habits that are harder to break. You might save money, but what slips away are the years you could have used to grow and explore. I have caught myself doing this sometimes too. I have a reputation for being very careful with money, and often I take that as a compliment. But I also know how easy it is to focus on saving and forget about living. I've had to remind myself again and again that invest in things that grow me, like skills, experiences, adventures. those are the things that carry value far longer than the money sitting in a bank account. So save where it doesn't matter, but spend where it makes life feel richer. Otherwise, what's the point of saving at all? The third one is the price trap of frugality. I think many of us have learned this lesson the hard way. You buy the cheaper option because it feels like the frugal move. Then it breaks, or it never really works right, and suddenly you are spending more money and time than if you had just gone for the better option in the first place. I have done this more than once, and every time it reminded me that frugality should not be about always spending as little as possible. It should be about spending wisely. Take shoes, for example. You grab the cheapest pair, and a few months later they are falling apart, or they have left you just with blisters. Or you buy a budget phone charger and it burns out after a few weeks. When you are making the choice, these look like savings, but the real cost is stress, lost time, and having to buy it again. So being cheap is not the same as being frugal. Real frugality is about value, not just price. But that line between those two can be very hard to see in the moment, especially if you are not familiar with the item that you are buying. So trial and error is sometimes needed here, and that is okay. Key is just to notice the pattern. If you keep replacing some items over and over, it's a sign that you are not saving at all. You are just spending in smaller pieces. For me, this happened with sports watches. I bought 2 second-hand ones because they were cheaper and I didn't want to buy a new one. One lasted a year and the other 2. Meanwhile, friends of mine bought just 1 new watch during that same time, or even a bit before. And in the end, we have all now spent about the same amount of money, but I have had to set up a new watch again and again and again, go through the learning curve, deal with the hassle of switching. So now I have finally bought a new one, not because I love spending more or buying new things, but because I value the peace of having something reliable. So the lesson here is not to spend big on everything, but to spend with intention when you know what works and what doesn't. So buy less, but better. Number 4, frugality can lock you into a role. Frugality works best as a tool you pick up and put down. But many people don't just use it, they start becoming it. They go from saving money to being the frugal one. At first, this can feel really harmless. You get known in your circle as the one who always finds the best deals, or the one who never spends on anything, like me. But slowly, the label can turn into pressure. Instead of asking yourself, what matters to me right now? Where should I invest? You start asking, does this match my frugal identity and how I should act? This is something we do in all parts of life. Someone becomes the funny one, or the shy one, or the career person. Once a role is attached to you, it's hard to step outside of it. You are no longer acting from choice, you are acting from expectation. In my opinion, frugality, when turned into an identity, is not really different from consumerism as identity. Both roles are built around money, not really values. The other is, of course, less harmful for the environment and for your wallet, yes, but it can be just as damaging when it comes to living a life that actually feels like your own. Rules, restrictions, and protecting an image replace real financial strategy. What started as a choice to live lighter turns into an expectation you have a hard time freeing yourself from. At the end of the day, you don't need another box to trap yourself in. You need the freedom to live on your own terms. The next truth is that frugality can distract from the real problem. Sometimes frugality isn't solving the real problem, it's just covering one up. Almost like a form of productive procrastination. You stay busy, you feel like you are doing the right thing, but you are really just avoiding what matters more right now in your life. You might be, for example, tracking every expense and meal prepping every week, all while staying in a job that doesn't give you any room to grow. Spending hours chasing deals instead of learning a skill that could actually raise your income, or living on an extreme budget while quietly feeling empty or without any direction in your life, and using frugality then as your distraction. The danger is that it feels like progress. You get the rush of saving money, the comfort of control, but it's a false sense of control, because while you're focused on saving, the bigger issues remain untouched. You mistake activity or movement for improvement. And I get why this happens. Cutting expenses is very easy and very measurable. You see results right away. And money is also an important part of life. But building a more sustainable income, changing your career, or even facing the question of what actually gives your life meaning, that is harder. That is way scarier and full of uncertainty. They might force you to confront fears about failure or starting over, but deep down, you know that is exactly what you should face. So the shift for you is that next time you catch yourself obsessing over tiny expenses, pause and ask yourself, is this really the place where I should spend my time and energy? Or am I avoiding a bigger thing I need to face? Then there's the cost of frugal pride. Frugality often starts from a good place. You want to be wise with money, make thoughtful choices, and avoid waste. But when pride, your ego, takes over, it starts to hold you back. You feel like you always have to handle things yourself, even when it would be easier, smarter, and healthier to let someone else help. I have seen this in my own family, the older generation especially, with the mindset of, I can handle it myself, I don't need your help. It can be seen as a strength, but it can also create a lot of suffering. People avoid going to the dentist because it is too expensive, and I'm really fine. But in the end, they pay more in pain and bigger medical bills later. You might spend hours trying to fix something instead of hiring someone who could do it in half an hour. Skipping professional help like an accountant or a coach, even if it could save you years of mistakes. You have fallen into this trap when any kind of spending feels wrong. Like you have this sense of shame if you cannot handle it all by yourself. And that shame makes it harder to accept generosity or even simple support when you actually need it. So real strength is not proving you can do everything alone. It's knowing when to invest in yourself, when to accept help, and when to open up. Frugality should make life better, not feed your ego while keeping you in suffering. Number 7, the lonely side of frugality. It's a fact that money decisions don't just shape your budget, they shape your relationships. Couples discuss it endlessly, families have different views on it, and in general, relationships can grow stronger or weaker depending on how money is handled. Because money carries this weight, it can often be seen as the silent language behind our closest relationships. For example, saying no to birthdays, dinners, or trips with friends because you don't want to spend, or refusing to chip in for group meals or small gestures. People notice that stuff. Friends may stop inviting you, assuming you will say no anyway, and instead of being seen as thoughtful with money, you risk being seen as distant or cold. The reality is that people don't want to always live cheap and save money with you. They want connection. They want to share meals, celebrate moments, and make memories together. Sometimes that is free, often it is not expensive, but it does mean being willing to spend every now and then. At the end, nobody cares how perfectly frugal you were. Nobody will remember the pennies you saved. What they remember are the moments shared with you, the life and moments you lived. That's why it is so important to be clear on your values. Decide what comes first, what deserves to be protected ahead of saving, because money will always matter, but relationships are one of the few things people consistently say matter most in life. So stay aligned with that idea. That's the kind of investment that pays back for the rest of your life. If you want more thoughts when it comes to frugal living, check out this video next. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to stay kind and meaningful in your own beautiful journey. See you in the next one. Ciao.